Hello and welcome to Speaking from the Heart with Sapi, a space for creatives, opinion leaders, and captains of industries to connect and have conversations on Africa and the issues that affect us. Our guests are individuals from all walks of life, each at the top of the game, who will be coming in to teach us and enrich us from their life experiences. In today's episode, we will be looking at the role that communications professionals play in the advancement of African societies and how strategic communication efforts can be used to have a positive effect on how people view Africa and how African people at large view themselves. Our guest is MOLIEHI MOLEKOA, a formidable award-winning communications practitioner. She is passionate about being the change that you want to be and wants to inspire Africans to pick themselves up and be first in line to realize their full potential. Welcome, Mo, and so happy to have you with us.
Thank you, Sapi. Thank you for this opportunity. It's great to be with you.
It's fantastic to see you. And might I say, you're right on brand and looking absolutely gorgeous.
I try.
What was the last thing that made you laugh?
You just made me laugh now.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm so glad.
It's always good to be in good company with positive energy. So I think for me, every day I try to find something that's just, lights up my life, that creates a meaning for me, because we are so inundated with negativity. Whether you sit on the TV, you read the newspaper, or you're just driving down the road, you just confronted with sadness. So I just try to find joy in small things. I've got this bag that says joy is a choice, and happiness is a choice. So it's just creating those small moments. And I'm surrounded by people when they call. The first thing would be to crack a joke,
Nice.
So those are the things that really just keeps on making me laugh, or makes me appreciate my daily blessings. So yeah.
And I'm so glad you started off with that I made you laugh, because do you remember how we first met? It was many moons ago. Many moons ago. And It was a phone conversation. And because Mojo has this rich voice, so we're having this conversation, and I assume that she's a dude. So I'm referring to her as male, and she kept saying to me, "Yo, Sapi, this conversation is really going down the drain quickly. We need to rescue it." And I think from that moment on, there was just always a connection. And as we've grown in our relationship and friendship, both within the industry and outside, it's just been exciting to get to know you better and understand the brand that is you and that is so passionate about Africa. And like I say, you're always on brand, always, always. Have you always found it easy to be the life of the party? I mean, in spaces where we've been together, you're right there in the mix, in the heart of it.
I'm actually, and this is hard to believe when I tell people this, I'm naturally an introvert. So what I do in the public space and what I do in terms of my professional work, for me, it's a character. This is what I do for a living. This is what I have studied for, and this is what I have mastered. So I so much understand the creative industry, the acting industry, because that's sort of like what I do. I wake up and I have to understand the role that I'm about to play, the set I'm going to step into and prepare for it. So it takes every day for you to prepare to understand what role are you going to play today, which organization are you going to work in, and what actually does it require? What skill set? What kind of mindset do you have to come with? Do you have to come at a level of a board? Are you coming at a CEO level? Are you coming at a junior level? So you must make sure that you are able to operate at all those levels at any given time. So I can't come, highly thinking, oh, I'm going to be addressing the board. Well, I just have to crack a joke with people on the ground and just have a good time and just, build that rapport. So that's what that's what I love about the space that I'm in, the industry that I'm in, because it's completely different from my day-to-day personal life when I'm not at work, when I'm not running a business and I'm just MOLIEHI with my kids, with my family. I love enjoying and seeing other people be their best and do what they do, not me, not being the center of attention. So that's not me.
It's not uncommon to have our homes always with cousins or friends or neighbors. But you being a pastor's child, and the pastor is for the community, for
Yes.
abantu bonke, was that the same, or did that make it more being a pastor's child, were there more people? Did you have to just give him up a little bit more? You just said you never had to fight for the attention of your parents' affection, but the fact that he was a pastor, were there difficult moments around that? And because he's for the community, was it extra people that were in the house than?
I think the difficulties or the challenges or the ugly bits where as you grow up, and then obviously as a child you have chores that you have to do, and your parents' home being sort of like a sanctuary for everybody else, you are automatically drawn into that space. It's not by choice. It's like, okay, you have to do this. And then the typical thing that is required of us is to make tea and be hospitable to everybody that comes. So it gets to a point where you are growing up and you're a teenager, you just get tired, you just want your time.
Yes.
And when the door just opens, you're like, oh, Lord, have to make tea. And then because, also your parents are timing you, it's like, you know what, that visitor should not spend more than 2 minutes without me hearing the kettle boiling or something. So you sort of like
must be fed.
So your time, you're sharing your time with this community or these people that are coming into your household. And that was something that I was very, very conscious of about my own children, to make sure that I do not impose my own kind of lifestyle and, the kind of, expectations, my own to them. The house must be free. They must know that, yes, this house also has people coming in and out, but then they don't necessarily have to be part of that. They can choose to be part of the people that come into the house or not. So for me, that was the only thing that, oh my word, you are the help now. You must make sure that everybody is comfortable. They're having their food, they're having their drinks, and all of those kind of things. But overall, I think the relationship part of it has been, more rewarding than the negative part of, being a servant, kind of.
Servant leadership is the heart.
I guess that's where it actually started.
Yeah, absolutely. I love when you said earlier that you just love seeing people and seeing people being their best. You've always shared that growing up, your father said and always says, there is always enough for everybody. There's no lack. There's enough to go around. How have you embodied that in your value system and how you've grown up? And is it a part of what you say that, at the end of it, well, when I take a step back, I'm just looking and enjoying what I see and people being who they are?
Yeah. And, lately, as I just experience and I go through this life moments, I just realized how profound that teaching has been, and how important it is to actually realize that we all are players in this world stage and we all have a role to play. So when my dad was saying there is always enough, and you'd think that we are coming from a big family. I've got a very, very small family. It's just 3 siblings, my mom and my dad. So there's a family of 5. But because of, him being a pastor and himself coming from a bigger family, we always had people. We were never ever that family of 5. We have always had people in our home, and those grew into brothers, sisters, and people that as life you grow up, you now have friends, relatives all over the country. But in that moment, in that particular space, we always had the love and affection of our parents. We never lacked that. Even though the home was so crowded, we had to share food, we had to share meals and all of those things. But then there's certain things where you still felt that, I can connect with my parents. They are giving me the attention that I need. So I don't necessarily have to fight for the affection. But also just looking in terms of as you're growing up, you realize that, there's competition out there. And competition is healthy, it's good. It helps you to understand and perfect yourself. So for me, it was like, oh, okay, there's always enough for us. So there's actually enough space for communicators. There's enough space
for everyone,
for any kind of agency to come and find a niche for themselves and perfect it, so we can all coexist. So sometimes people in my industry, they find it funny that I'm friends with people that are supposed to be so-called
frenemies.
competitors. And I'm just like, no, they're not competitors. We complement each other. And the more we are together, the better we can actually, provide a safety net for ourselves, but also be able to tackle some of the issues that we are experiencing as an industry. So for me, there's always enough for everyone. I don't see competition as something that should threaten me or something that should actually make me to be scared and thinking, okay, what's next? It actually just helps me to understand that there are people who also do certain things better than me. So how about I learn or bring them into my space and we can be able to collaborate and co-create things. And that's why for me then the love of the continent, finding out what's more, breaking the divides, this artificial divides that have been created, to then say, how do we step over those and actually tap into what Sapi has? Because look what has that brought us now. Look where we are sitting. We are sitting discussing, things that we spoke about like 9 years ago, and now they are manifesting, but we are also tapping into our own powers and bringing those things to life. But if I saw you as a threat, we would never had that conversation to say, okay, beyond our day-to-day, what else? What are your aspirations? What do you like to do? What else do you have to actually bring to the table? And we realize that we are actually more creative than just what we do from what people know as on a day-to-day. So
absolutely,
that's something that is a gift from me that my father has given me. And I mean, there are certain things that you can never quantify from a monetary point of view. So for me, that is something I pass on to my kids. That's something that I live with, and I look at it every day as like, wow, what a wise man this has been. And I really, really appreciate that lesson.
You took me back when you talked about collaboration and knowing which lane that you run in. So there's enough for everybody, and how this conversation sort of started so many years ago. And I just remembered when we were taking the game drive in Zimbabwe, and we started talking about the stories that we should tell. Bringing light to the African woman narrative and being part of the voices that change the narrative of our continent. When was the first time that you realized that this is what you want to do, and what is the most favorite part of the work that you do?
Sure. That is so loaded, Sapi, because I think I'll have to take a moment to actually think if there was any particular time or if I've just been walking in my purpose.
Take the moment.
So I don't think there was any particular time, because just a quick background, when I grew up and when I finished my matric, I didn't know of the public relations sector. It's not a career that I, was there for us to know of,
right?
Or that you could actually say, we had career guidance and it was spoken about. We grew up with careers like law being prominent, and on TV when we were watching things that were pushing that kind of a career, whether it was LA Law or in the heat of the night, or those kind of things. It was either detective kind of series, legal series, and or advertising, not public relations, not PR, but advertising, the creative space in that way. So one really didn't know about there is actually PR as a career. So I wanted to be a lawyer. And I was fascinated because towards my senior year, then we had the whole O.J. Simpson, case, and then it was a whole, legal case that was broadcast, and watching that really, really intrigued me. And I was reading, the legal books and all of those things. I was just like, okay, that's what I want to do. But my mom was like, I don't see you as a lawyer. As I said, from a personal point of view, in my own space, I'm an introvert. So all I would be doing, I'd be sitting there and playing with my doll by myself. I can entertain myself. I don't need anybody to entertain me. I'll sit there and I just be going through my day.
Yeah.
So she never, from what she saw and understood what happens with lawyers, she didn't see me being that. So that's how, actually it happened. And I went and I was like, okay, I need to do something. I'm not going to take a gap year. Because also there was no such a thing as gap years. So I needed to pick something, and then you apply, you at various universities, you pick subjects, and then you qualify for others. And I ended up in a public relations space, and I went to VETS and I did the year of that. And lo and behold, I took a gap year. And I was like, okay, so there's such things. And my parents were open to it. I took a year and I went overseas. I spent a year
that's
overseas.
amazing.
And I was like, oh, okay, they are also sort of like, oh, progressing. This is nice. And then from there, came back, completed my degree in PR, and went in from internship into a public relations agency and just started working. And, so it was never a moment where it was like, okay, this is what I want to do. It was getting into that. It wasn't
love at first sight.
No. It was in that kind of, oh, wow, this is actually, I couldn't actually name this, but this is what I want to do. Studied, got into it, and then started. I think when you are in it, then you start saying, oh, okay, so this is actually what I'm meant to be. This is better than law, but actually it is actually a bit of it. So because you have to sort of like understand the client's problems, you have to look at how do we strategically solve these issues. You have to build relationships so you can have, people on your side. You can be able to tell your story in a way that actually bridges the gaps and all of those things. So you're like, oh, okay, I think this is law, but in a way that it has never been quite explained. So, okay.
Because I'm contextualizing, I'm telling a specific story, I'm making a case for, I'm advocating for.
But all roads led back to engaging and managing people and being in that center of, how do I create a story? How do I tell, a story in a positive way, in a way that people would actually say, oh, I didn't see that way.
You mentioned right at the very beginning just the importance of that collaboration. Listen, I know my strengths. I start here, I end there. So how do you think we're able to connect creatives in different parts of the world for a better output?
So I think we, by especially from an African point of view, the way that colonization had played a trick on us by dividing us and making us separate and think that, the other is better than. It's something that has really crippled us, and it's something that we actually have to intentionally work against because we are better together, and there is so much power in actually having a diverse view on the table. So being actually intentional about reaching out to somebody who has a different view than yourself. It leaves you better empowered. It gives you a better perspective on life. So that's why I always sort of like try to really break those barriers and always have engagement with people, whether it's media colleagues, whether it's colleagues from the creative space, in the advertising space, whether it's from a digital social media, always just trying to have those conversations, because the more you understand, the world, how see things, the more enriched you are. So I think it becomes a deliberate action of ourselves realizing that there is, this intention to keep us divided, to make us to sort of like we are fighting for a small piece of pie, to then saying, actually, you know what, we can win better if we are together. Because then if I come from a PR perspective to say, this is how we solve this problem, and then you overlay that with, here's a creative way of doing that, and then you have a musician who's saying, I can put a beat to this, and you have an influencer who's saying, okay, I can share this with my, people. It just makes that whole thing better and richer, and then you reach a goal better than if we were just sitting there and thinking, oh, okay, I'm going to write a press release and I'm going to send a media to the media, and that's it, But now you've brought different people who have different connections and they can do different things with that content. It makes it better. So I think right now we are living in actually great times where also, from a technology point of view, it has just, it has just collapsed a lot of things.
100%.
It's now easy for me to connect with my Nigerian counterparts and we can collaborate online. We can be able to do a project online and it can be shared all over the world.
Silver lining.
So it's just amazing. And we need to take advantage of that. I don't think we do enough of it. But there's been a lot of, that drive ourselves from a agency point of view and from an industry. And I think as Africans ourselves, that's what we are pushing for. Whether it's in the fashion industry, whether it's in the film industry, photography, everywhere, everybody's just seeing how important it is to actually tap into other, spaces, tap into other people, bring their experience together, and it just enriches everything.
Absolutely. I think the one thing really that has been the silver lining out of the last 2 or 3 years that COVID shut everything down is the fact that where the world, we talked about a global village and now it's truly, truly so much smaller, and we've accepted being able to work with one remotely. And that has just allowed that collaboration across different time zones and borders, and has made that and really, I think, brought it to life. Before it was almost like something that was theoretical. Yeah. More so, when it comes to the strategies that we do, what role or how do you think the strategies that we develop can assist our communities to protect assets or to protect things of value from being exploited? How do you think our industry can play in that space?
Yeah. I think the first thing is to really, really go back to understanding ourselves, understanding our continent, understanding our people, so we can base our strategies on facts, on insights. So I always say, especially when I go to countries, that I'm not an African expat, because most people who call themselves their expats, they are sitting in an aircon hotel, and people come and meet them there, and that's how they are gathering their insights and everything. Whereas there's a difference from actually having a lived experience. Get into the market, be one with the people, understand when you're going to now promote this product, that you need to communicate its benefit, because then you have to, client will give you a brief and saying, okay, can you PR this? Not understanding how this actually relates to the target audience, because you have never actually given yourself to understand that target audience. You will find that message does not actually land. So giving ourselves time to actually understand, have enough insights about the people that we are engaging with, have enough understanding of what is their lived experience. I always argue about the whole thing of, if you look at our time that is spent on client, most of it, if not 70% or 60% of it, it's spent on meetings and talking to ourselves as the people that are working on one particular brand. It's either with us, with the client, or here. We are never actually out there bringing an outside in approach. So we lose our flavor in terms of what we're supposed to come in as. As consultant, we're supposed to come in as, we are your, external people that are actually going to sift, your perceived reality, because as a brand, you just want to sell. But really, the people that you are trying to sell to, it's either they've moved away from that, it's either they have new needs, and also how you talk to them is not how they actually want to receive the news. So how do we make sure that you are actually on the pulse? You are understanding what people are looking for. So I think our strategy and the role that we need to be playing is to hold the mirror to our clients to say, this is what actually the people that you're engaging with looking for. and this is how we need to speak to them. And we need to make sure that we really, really break down communication. It becomes simple. We have complicated how we communicate. We have really, really have gone and we go over our people's head. We don't speak to them,
We speak
at them. We broadcast. There isn't that engagement where we can actually say, we hear you, and this is how, your feedback is actually going to help us to come back with a better product, better service, or better way of engaging. So I think we need to really listen more, and before we will just want to go and act, and that requires us to sort of like have a step back kind of attitude before we just come up with slides and slides of strategies that really do not say anything. Are those strategies inside-led? Are those strategies really speaking to the heart of the issue? Or are we just selling products? What is the current environment and the landscape saying? And how does business have to be agile enough to respond to those issues that are actually burning in people's minds? So I think there's a balance between the reality on the ground of the consumer and the business reality. How do we bring those together? And that's where we now have to play a very, very critical role in making sure that those two come together and they make sense.
Mojo, is it our responsibility to educate and combat the way the Western media frames African societies? We can't control them, but we definitely can see that there's a thread and a narrative that they continually reinforce.
Yeah.
What's our responsibility, if any?
I think so, because if we don't do that, the narrative will continue going on and being untrue, and people thinking that the story of Africa being this dark continent is true. But also I'm reminded by this quote that says, until the lion tells his story, the hunter will always be glorified. So it's our responsibility to change the narrative. It's our responsibility to correct the mistruths and to show our stories and to show our reality the way that it is, So we can't give or continue to give people power over us, because if we do not take that, we are basically saying we are powerless. There's nothing we can do. So those who have the means to tell the story, they must do that. So we're talking about how technology has actually just changed everything. We now have the power through the digital platforms to actually reach masses, reach the globe. And tell our story. So we must take advantage of that and be able to be quite active in actually correcting all these things and all these negative perceptions about ourselves. And it's all our responsibility. It's not any particular person or organization. It's all our responsibility. As long as you are telling yourself that, I'm a proud African, I need people to understand who we are. You must have that responsibility and make sure that you live your own truth every single day.
I can see that, you're a pastor's daughter here. The spirit was moving. We have a lot of us immigrating. Often we say we're moving greener pastures. How do we empower Africans to have something positive to say about the continent when they're abroad? Because unfortunately, and it could just be in my sphere, where I've sat with fellow Africans from across the continent who have migrated and settled abroad.
Yeah.
There's very few positive things to say about a place that has raised you. So how do we empower Africans? How do we become better advocates and champions of the continent?
Yeah. That is so sad because we then are not helping the cause of changing the narrative that where we come from, things are not as they are. And this does not mean that there's nothing to fix.
Yes. It's not burying your head in the sand,
it's
right?
Not really burying your head in the sand, because also in order for us to have those positive stories, there are things that we need to fix.
Yes.
So truth be told, we have a lot of work to do. as Africans, from a government point of view, from a whole lot of things that just need to really, really be fixed, so that we could be able to have those positive stories. But our story is not just unique. Everybody else, we all have our own kind of things that we need to fix.
Yeah.
But we need to right now be looking at how do we market ourselves better?
Yes.
Because that's all it's all about. The way that you see places being marketed, you get you get lured to go there. You get there and you're like, oh God, this place is not that great. It's just this part.
Yes.
That have been so positioned to make you think that, oh, it's amazing.
Yes.
Once you get there, you're just like, oh God, we actually have it better. So I think it's really, it's in our own best interest. The reality is that whether you migrate or not, it's just a part of you that goes. The rest of your family, they're still here. So it's. I think for me, it's always looking at a bigger picture to say, yes, you might think that you're going to a greener pasture, but one way or the other, you'll always come back to this place. So how do you make sure that when you actually have the opportunity to uplift, to do something, whether it's through building positive narrative, through investing back, you do that. It is upon ourselves to actually to fix our country. It's upon ourselves to fix our continent. I always talk about from a South Africa point of view, we always talk about we have a brain drain, and we are talking from a national point of view where we do have people, especially professionals, leaving the country going for greener pastures. But I've actually said, and I'm on a mission to say, guys, we actually have a provincial brain drain. The provinces where we come from. I'm originally from the Free State, in the Eastern Free State, in the former homeland of Putadichaba.
Yeah.
And look where I am. I'm in Gauteng. This is where I'm making moves. This is where I have set my base, my family, and all of those things. When I go back home, I always complain because certain things are not working to the level of what I'm used here. But I can't continue on that vein complaining when I'm not doing anything
about it.
So
right.
I am on a course of, I need to do something to go back home and help that municipality and help that community to start to think better, to make sure that we are able to do things. We don't just rely on government to help us. We are the change that we want to actually see. So what do we do to clean the community that we are living in? And what do we do to make sure that the kids are off the street and they are not, into drugs and all of these other bad habits? How do we help in the street that you live in to actually have a community home where you could be able to say, we are doing, arts, we are doing drama, we are doing something, and that will catch on. So those are the kind of things that one has to now look into to say, you know what, if we are always waiting for government to do something, we are the government, we are the change makers. How do we make sure that we actually live that? And it's in the small act. I know sometimes it becomes overwhelming. So even with those people we're asking, how do we tell a better story about ourselves? It's really, really in the small act of having, when you are out there with your colleagues, to be able to look at the news and saying, okay, actually, here's a positive story about Africa. I mean, we've got platforms that now are focusing on good news, just to say, okay, here we are. If you are struggling, you can't find it. So you know what, make sure that this site is one of your favorites where you go in and they tell you a good story about a particular country. So there is now avenues of helping you to just consume good news that you could be able to tell. So we need to start changing our own mindsets and being able to say, how can I stop being negative? Because also it's very toxic being negative.
Yes, it is.
It's for your own health, it's really, really not good for you. But for the people that are around you, no one wants to be around a negative person or a person who always thinks that, Africa is a dark continent. There's nothing good that comes out of that. Look at us.
Look at us. We're shining. Absolutely love that you say we shouldn't be waiting for a savior. we are the people, we are here, we're the ones that we should save ourselves. We're the ones that can do something rather than be looking externally.
Yes.
And the problem you mentioned about provinces and your from Free State, right?
Yes.
It's not peculiar to just South Africa.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, in Zim, with town planning and the way they build the towns, there were schools, right, that were supposed to support the community.
Yes.
So when the communities were, we had a lot of white Zimbabweans living in those communities. They kept the schools up and things were working.
Yeah.
They moved on. What do? We go and we follow them where they're developing their schools and we think that's the solution rather than, I've got a school here in the community. It's walking distance for my child. So safety and all of that. Let me build this. But instead I'm like, no, man, this is nonsense. This is not up to the standard. I'm going to go with where the standard has been created rather than me create the standard. Yeah. So I think it's a problem. It's a mindset that we have across, which is really unfortunate. But like you say, don't wait for a savior. You are the savior that you want to see. And it's one step at a time, right? Yep. It's one step at a time. Yeah.
And the time to do that is now.
There's no better time.
So there's no better time. If we keep on waiting, we will wait until, we die.
Yeah.
So we need to take those small steps now.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And how do you think we're able to create a culture that constantly highlights the positive aspects? You mentioned just a minute ago that there are now spaces, like you mentioned Good News, where it's really being deliberate and about saying something positive. So how do we build on that and continue making sure that they grow and they're exposed and they have legs and they are what goes viral?
Yeah. I think some of these things is really a matter of choice. We must choose good over evil and over negativity, and support that. I know, there's a tendency or there is a notion in our space, especially in the communication and in the media space that, bad news sells,
Yes. And unfortunately.
And we are the people who consume that. So that means we have the power to choose otherwise. So the whole thing of deciding what you consume, what you spend on, what you actually are going to let your eyes see, it's upon you. So I think for me, the main thing is that we have literally taken power away from ourselves. We have given power to people to direct us and to tell us what is good for us, what is it that we want, instead of actually saying, you know what, actually no. I'm not going to spend my time or I'm not going to spend my heart and money on consuming this. So this is not for me. And I think also we have seen it with, as much as it's because of the digital and the technology taking over, where a number of tabloid publications have closed, but also it has been through people who decided, no, we are no longer spending our money buying this particular publication. There is nothing of value that I get out of that. Is now trash. So I'm not going to spend my time on it. So we have to decide on that. As much as we are consuming content now on social platforms and all of that, and they at times become sort of like, the channel in which we break each other down. But there's also so much good that can be done. So we need to decide and choose. How do we use those channels? Because these are the tools that we've been given. And we have seen when they are used for good, how we all come together, how we all just become, overwhelmed to say, oh, wow, actually, you're a good human being.
Yeah.
And it's good to be a South African. We can come together. There's a cause for us to celebrate and all of those things. So it's not all that bad. So I really, really think that it's a choice. It's a personal choice to say, what are you going to do today that is actually going to cause a positive action? No one is going to put a gun in your head and say, okay, go do this. You have to decide. And I think until we change that mindset of thinking that, we are all we are living under dictatorship. We are told to do and go one way. We're not. We have the freedom to choose. So choose wisely. Choose to actually have a positive impact. Choose to do something that is going to uplift the next person. Give an encouraging word. Give somebody, food if you have more than enough. So it's those small acts of kindness that will really, really just help us. Because otherwise, if we're looking at the problem, it's too big. The world that we are living in right now, my country right now, the issues that we are facing, they are so big that you just feel that, you know what, you are going to get into this deep depression. But if you just like, okay, let me just look here, what can I do today as Moliehi that is just going to help me to put a smile on myself and to the next person, and that person does the same thing, it has that ripple effect. It then changes how you see the day, and then the day is gone, the week is gone, the month is gone, you're moving on. But then you're moving on, not by yourself, with others, and then there is that change.
Right, yeah. We are the sum of the choices
We are.
that we make. What role do you see your specific skill set in progressing our cultures and helping Southern African societies?
Yeah. So I think from a communication point of view, and I think this is what COVID really, really taught us, is how important of a skill it is. That it's actually a strategic function. We've seen how much information people needed, and being able to communicate with clarity, being able to communicate in a way that empowers people to know what's next. So in all that we do, the communication is central, and it will always be in order to actually get people moving. It can cause wars. It can also help to build, because it's in the power of the word. Absolutely. That we can get anybody to do anything. So we actually have, and we play such a critical role because of the power that we have to, influence minds, to influence actions, to influence leaders, followers, all of those people. So I really feel that, in the content that we create, in how we engage and advise our various clients, we have to understand that we play a critical role, that we actually are changing, industries, we are changing, policy, we are changing government in how we plan and in what we actually bring to them, whether it's the data to say, if you don't do action one, this is what will happen. Just that one information, that one piece of information might actually change somebody's course. So I always say, even with the whole, 4IR coming in, and people thinking that, everything is going to take over our jobs. No one will ever take the space of communication and reputation management. There'll always be a human factor in that, because we all have, a way of understanding and bringing life to that a machine can't. So we just need to make sure that we keep, growing, polishing our skills, making sure that we are in touch with the people, and making sure that we also we ground ourselves. I think sometimes we get so far away from reality that we actually start drinking the Kool-Aid of, whether it's your client, whether it's whoever. Then you're like, okay, go back, ground yourself. Why are you here? Go center yourselves, and be able to be the true bridge of making sure that communication is simple. People understand what they're doing and where we are going. And
In closing, my last question: how do we empower future generations to have a better understanding of themselves and be able to stand on top of the foundations that we are building today?
I think we need to lead by example, first of all. So we can't expect them to learn something that they don't see. So we need to live that truth first. So we need to really, really lead by example. So I can't even go and become philosophical about it. If I want my kids to actually be better human beings, I must be a better human being now. That's all I need to do. They must see how I think life is, and how a good citizen in this particular point is. And that's what they need to emulate. Anything else, really, it's over and above that. So just live by example, find good people that you really, really can learn from, and take from that, and be able to say, okay, this is how I can actually cut my own life pattern according to what I'm seeing. because you can throw words, you can do all of those things, but you know what? If it's not something that you actually are living, you show that it's practical. It can be that I can share my space with people. It can be that I can be kind to the next person. To tell my kids be kind, what's that? It doesn't mean anything. To be able to say, I'm going to keep to the deadline. I'm going to deliver. Your word is your bond. So do those things and let them see those things. And that's how they will learn. Because if they had to go back and say, where did you learn this thing from? They could say, oh, but my mom kept her word.
Yeah.
So why would I deviate from that? Why would I not do that? So it's really just living by example.
Well said. Thank you so much for joining us, Mo. It's been an absolute pleasure. And what gems and I think truths and authenticity that you brought to the table today. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been listening in, everyone who's been watching us. Follow us on Thando channel on all social media platforms. We'd love to hear your thoughts. We'd love to hear your comments. And when you do, make sure you hashtag Speaking with Sapi. Thank you.